Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Guthrow back with another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. And today I'm here with Sara Wesbrook. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is totally my pleasure. Nice to see you again. And Sara, I don't know who the listeners are and what their backgrounds are and things like that. So if you use any acronyms, I may say, Sara, what does that mean? But I know that one of the things you're really keen on is emotional resilience, and that's the area you work in. So what does that mean, Sara?
So when I think about resilience, let's just take resilience. The idea of being able to face a challenge, but be able to bounce back to move forward. So you face a challenge, but you can move beyond that challenge. And when I say move beyond that challenge, it does not mean that you move beyond the challenge and you're the same person you were before you hit the challenge. It means you are a new, evolved version of you. You've learned something and you haven't stayed down and out. You have learned not just to survive, but to thrive. And when I put the word emotional in front of resilience, I look at the fact that we often think about resilience as being able to bounce back and move forward from a challenging circumstance. So, for example, I'll say my parents divorced when I was almost 12 years old. That was a challenging circumstance. And you want to be resilient to that challenge. You want to bounce back to move forward. But what we often miss is that the challenging circumstance is not just what we have to move through and with. It has now triggered an emotion. We are human beings. We are not robots. So my parents' divorce now triggered sadness, confusion, scared, anxious, nervous, anger. I had to learn how to navigate those emotions, not just the circumstance. So giving tangible tools that are simple and effective when it comes to being aware of emotions, how to manage and navigate them in a healthy way so that you can be emotionally resilient is become a big passion of mine and a big practice. So it's not just I share it, I practice it. I'm like, some days are just tough, right? Some emotions got you going all over the place, but I do believe that's part of the journey.
So you don't just teach this stuff, you live it.
I live it. I breathe it, David, right? You got it. I do believe it's a muscle, right? We can exercise it. We can strengthen it. And when you have tools and you have exercises to do that, it makes it that much easier. Not that every day is always easy, but that it makes it easier when you are like, oh, I have something that I can do, a strategy that I can put into action that would be helpful. It's just, I compare it to even a bicep. Like if I wanted huge bulging biceps, I wouldn't just be like, hey, David, guess what? I just want to work out my bicep muscle. But I just talk about it and I watch a few YouTube videos on it and listen to just a podcast about it, right? You would have to do the work. You'd have to go pick up a dumbbell, put in the effort, make it consistent. So I do believe that's the same when it comes to our emotional resilience, our mental mindset. You have to be able to exercise and put in the work.
So that's very helpful, that explanation. And then with whom do you work, Sara? Like who do you convey these skills to and help them learn to build this emotional resilience?
Can I just say everyone? No.
Yeah, you could say that.
It's all encompassing.
Maybe where it started and how it expanded.
Yes. So I started in schools. Actually, going back to when my parents got divorced around 12, that circumstance mixed in with this one student in my class constantly making fun of me, my mom could see was directly impacting my confidence. I allowed it to impact my worthiness. So I could go to school, David, a smile on my face, get good grades, but at home be crying. So my mom saw that there was a impact that was happening to my self-worth that she was wanting me to have more tools around. So she put me in every single support group, character education, leadership course at the time that she could get her hands on. And of course, at that age, I'm like, I don't need this. I don't need, what are you talking about? I don't want to go. I just want to hang out with my friends. And my mom would say, well, you don't have a choice. You're going. And I'd be like, well, that's rude that I don't have a choice at 12 years old. And she'd say, no, you have a choice. I'd say, thank you. She'd say, you can choose what pants you wear.
Oh,
you're still going to the course. So I ended up with so many tools in my toolbox at a young age. And it wasn't even that I always implemented them right away. But it's like that saying, you can take a horse to water, you can't make them drink.
Right.
But when the horse is thirsty, they'll know where the water is. So I had these tools in my back pocket, and they made a huge difference in my life as I became an older teen. In my early 20s, and I wanted to impact young people's lives the way I felt I was impacted by other adults and people that shared with me mindset tools. And so that became part of the reason why I started with schools.
And maybe we could pause just for a moment and give 3 cheers to an observant and caring mother.
Yay. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, right? Hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. Absolutely. And that wasn't easy because I gave her a lot of tantrums, I'm sure.
Oh, but it's good that, as you said, she gave you the tools. So when you needed them, you knew where to go and get them.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was very wise of her. And when I look back, can be difficult because if she would have allowed me to, I could have talked her out of it. But my mom was very much my parent and very much like, I have a job to do and you might not always like what I'm saying, but you don't see the forest, you just see the tree. She could see beyond it. And so she held me accountable to what she knew was possible for me, even though I didn't realize at the time the benefit of all these support avenues were.
Well, so you had a really good launching pad for doing what you're doing now, right?
And this would never have been my plan, side note. Right. And I love it.
So you've been working in schools and like elementary school, high school, all schools.
For the last 18 years. Yes. Wow. And then it evolved into working with educators, giving them tools for their own emotional resilience, and for those they work with, students, also with parents. So really parents looking at not just how can we help our kid, but how can we also help ourselves so that we are modeling to our kids what we want them to learn. Because I do think there's the big reason why kids grasp onto something is they're watching, and we want to make sure we're modeling what we're hoping they will learn. I know my son's 11 and they're watching more than they're listening sometimes. And then it evolved into me working with corporations. So I still do that with teams on emotional resilience, and also teams now, actual athletic teams, a lot of hockey teams, a lot of really competitive teams. And my son plays hockey. So it's really neat to see how tangible and transferable the skills I'm sharing on emotional resilience and mindset are.
So how did you get into doing it? I mean, you said your son plays hockey and at a fairly high level for his age. How did you get invited in to do that? Or did you just force yourself in as a mother?
No, I didn't actually. So it's so interesting. So the beginning of this year, his coach actually said, do you want to, I know what you do. And I really think the mental part of the game is super important. And I do think it's not just about hockey, it's about life. And we're creating athletes, but we want them to be people of the world that are also have a character, know what to do with their emotions, are proactive with their mental health, resilient. All of that is the whole person. And I was like, yeah, you're totally speaking my language. And absolutely, I agree. And I love that. That's your focal point. And he said, so what do you think about doing it, a few sessions? And I was like, okay, thank you for thinking of me. And David, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, there is no way my son, I don't even want to get involved. I don't even want to. It's his journey. It's his thing. I'm going to be here. I'm going to support him. So I sat down with Kai and I said, this is what the coach asked. And I don't know. I'm going to lovingly say no, because I know that might be weird for you. And he just looked at me and he's like, he asked you to do that? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, I think you should.
Wow.
Because I think it would be really helpful. And I was like, oh, and he's super honest. The listeners don't know, but you probably know, I started off my career as a singer-songwriter. Like, that was what I did before speaking. I've been singing since I was 11 years old, working at dinner theaters. I did the whole, CD, go to Nashville. I mean, the whole thing, music videos. And I was asked to sing "Oh Canada" at one of his games. And he's like, Mom, absolutely no. Meanwhile, I'm saying for the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Flyers, the Blue Jays. He's like, Mom, you cannot. So I assumed he was going to be like, and so then after I did a few sessions, I was like, you know what, Kai, that's probably good. You probably, you and your team, like, I'll just back away now. And he's like, Mom, it's really helpful. Why would you stop? He's like, I really think people like it. I was like, okay. So this is kind of how it started. And then I started posting some little clips of some of my strategies on Instagram. And then other teams started reaching out.
Wow. Well, first of all, I think that's, a young man that's sort of wise beyond his age, because I can imagine a lot of kids saying they don't want their mother involved, certainly in something that they're doing. It's certainly not a sport, and just, the potential for having the kids kind of poke them on the ice and say, that's your mom. Oh, that's your mom, sort of thing. So
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So for him to be able to acknowledge that and for you to continue on with the team, I think is quite fabulous. So that again would seem to indicate you're using the skills that you teach with your family, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I did thank him. I made a conscious effort, even just a little bit ago. I said, thank you, because you've chose to allow me into your space and into your team's space. And I want to honor you for that. And I also want to thank you because I've learned a lot.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious. Well, and I guess those kinds of skills in particular, as they get into the playoffs, become really important with all the pressure there. But what are some of the discrete skills, if there are such things as discrete skills, that you teach?
So one part that I really want to start with, no matter who I'm working with, is looking at circumstances are going to happen in your life.
Okay.
So you are not going to be in control of every circumstance. So if we're looking at a player, you're not in control of everyone else's choices, all your teammates' choices, your coach's choices. As a person, you're not in control of all your family's choices. You could be having a great day and then boom, a circumstance happens in your life and you're thinking, could have done without that. So let's look at the things we don't have control over, because sometimes we focus so much on what we don't have control over, which is such a waste of energy. And let's focus on where you do have control. And so this is even, if I'm talking in the corporate level, let's look at what we don't have control over. Now let's focus on what we do. So you always have control over your actions, your reactions, what you tell yourself, and what you choose to believe about yourself, your skills, your talent, your body. And so if you have the power to choose how you're going to act and how you're going to react, what you're going to choose to believe, that's actually quite a bit of power you have in your own court. Even though you might not always like the circumstance, now you get to choose, who am I going to become from it? And oftentimes we hear people talking about character, right? Like, be a character, be courageous, make a choice that shows integrity, make a respectful choice, be responsible, be kind. In a world where you can choose anything, choose kind. So this is something that matters to us as human beings, as players, as community members, family members, be of character. So I say, okay, so what makes it hard? Why don't we just walk around making kind, respectful, responsible choices, no matter what the circumstance? We don't have control over the circumstance, but how we act and react, just choose kind, just choose responsible. What makes it difficult, David, you probably guessed it, emotions. When you are triggered to feel sadness, it is harder to choose kindness. When you have your sadness now morph into anger, something happened, you were sad, boom, now you're mad. It is harder to show respect out of anger. When you don't know what to do with anxious inside your body and your brain, it is harder to choose brave. So my skills go to, I teach them a choice-making formula just to really break down where you can make choices from. You can either A, just become reactive out of every emotion, or suppressive. Neither of those are going to be helpful in the long. Or you can say, look it, I'm allowed to feel. I'm allowed to feel sad. I'm allowed to feel angry. I'm allowed to feel anxious and happy. And some of it's all in the same morning. But what I do with those emotions matters, because what I'm not allowed to do is make every choice just because I felt like it. So the skills that I teach really go into emotional awareness, name the emotion, notice it, notice where it's impacting you physically. So now your brain can see as a piece of information. This is super valuable for your brain. Your brain's a great problem solver, but it needs proper information. And since we are human beings that feel a wide range of emotions, part of our intelligence is called emotional intelligence. But a lot of us haven't tapped into that. So really get some simple, effective strategies. And then when you know what to do with emotions, it clears up choices, because now you can say, oh, I know what to do with anxious, so I can still be brave. Like I can feel anxious, my heart's racing, I feel like my throat's closing in, but I have tools on how to navigate and manage so I can still choose brave. I can feel frustrated, but I can still choose to be determined. I can use my determination as not just information, even motivation.
Well, I think so. For everyone to be at choice and to have agency in their life is so huge, right? And I was just kind of thinking about emotional resilience and what kind of a world, how the world would be different if everyone in it had emotional resilience. Like that would be pretty incredible. And part of the challenge is you don't. So with emotional resilience, you learn how to deal with the people who aren't.
Well said, because there's people. Other people's emotions will also trigger an emotion in you. And what I've learned too, as a recovering people pleaser, is how much I absorbed other people's emotions as if they were my own. I'm like, oh, that's not even my emotion. I've got enough of my own.
One of the things that I've been trying to do, and maybe it falls into the category of emotional resilience, whenever something happens to me or around me that, I wouldn't have chosen, like some of the events you talked about, I try to get my immediate response to be, I can work with that. So no matter what it is, I tell myself, I can work with that. I don't know how, but I start with I can. Instead of, starting with what am I going to do? How am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? I start from a position of, I don't want to say power, but it is my own power.
Yeah.
But I can work with that. I can work with this. And one of the examples, I have a client that we spent many, many meetings designing a strategic planning session. And he has this tendency to come in on the second day and go, I was thinking, and, and I used to go, oh no, what's it going to be? So now before he even opens his mouth, and he's a really nice guy, I say, I can work with that. So I start with the position of whatever it is, I can work with that. And it just gives me so much more influence.
I like that. I like that a lot, because you're refocusing your brain to also see the information different, as opposed to it overwhelming you. And the brain is powerful. And so we can make it work for us or against us. And in my mind, that's working for you.
Well, and it sort of avoids the amygdala hijack, that triggers the fight, flight response, whatever might happen to be. So I start from a position of choice rather than a position of victimhood. So one of the things I'm curious about is how you've made the jump, or how you've used your own emotional resilience to go from from being a singer-songwriter to working with kids to working with teams to working in the corporate world. Like how have you made that adjustment?
It's been an evolution. I do believe that you can't connect all the dots looking forward. So if I was to say, okay, I'm going to be a singer, and then I'm going to be at a mall, and the principal's going to ask me, can you sing at my school? Because that is what really happened. And then you're going to feel the fear and do it anyway, because that was terrifying to go and sing in front of the school. But then they're going to ask you questions about life. And then you're going to pull out tools in your back pocket. And then it's going to evolve into you starting your own business. And you're going to use music, but you're not going to just focus on music. I'd be like, I'm overwhelmed already. Know what that is. But it was that stepping into the journey and knowing that my end result was always about making a positive difference for people's resilience and confidence and self-worth. So I didn't know exactly how that would look. At first, I thought it would just look for me singing songwriting. And then I thought, then when I was asked to speak at the school, I thought that was just going to be a kind of a one-off I did. And then when I did it again, I thought, well, that's another, okay, I'm just going to do another one. And then they told another school, I was like, okay, well, I'll just do this other one. And then it started to become bigger. And to the point where my mom said she was an entrepreneur herself. And she's like, well, I could work for you and we could do this, like I could do the behind the scenes stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, and now 18 years later, we've been working together ever since. And then when I did schools and I really embraced that, when they said, okay, well, can you work now with our teachers? Again, it was just feel the fear and do it anyway. Because I was like, yeah. And I'd say yes and figure it out later. And well, can you work with our parents? Because the parents need to hear this. And that, that was even okay. And then I became a parent. And then it was like, well, I also want to do work with corporations. Could I do that? And that was an evolution of, that one was only say 3-4 years ago. And then the evolution of teams, athletic teams, and even just an athlete one-on-one. I think it was just a really big evolution and just staying open, but knowing that all of it had the foundation of what I actually am always been committed to, which is helping the resilience, confidence, and self-worth of people, whether it's through music or speaking.
So do you use throughout that transit or that transmogrification, I don't know what the word is, as you did
evolution, transformation,
that's the word I'm looking for. That's the word I'm looking for. Do you still use music? Like, music is so powerful, and I think people open up in a different way. And I'm just trying to imagine how you do it in a corporate environment or with team, or do you? Because that to me would take, if it was me, I'm putting myself in your place, I think that was going to take a lot of courage for me to do that. Maybe let's just not do that right now. Do you incorporate that at all?
So for schools, always. And I say to them, even when I'm about to do singing, because I talk about judgment, I talk about emotions, I say, I'm going to sing for you. And so then you get like you get a moment. And I say, I'm going to sing for you for a couple of reasons. Number one, I love music. Number two, you're going to judge me more. You are naturally going to judge if I can sing, can't sing. You like my music, don't like my music. If you like me, you don't like me. The style of music I sing, you will naturally judge me. I just want you to be an observer in your brain. And I want you to notice how much your brain talks, but how you have the ability to choose whether you hold that thought or not, or hold that judgment. And I also want you to notice that when I say I'm going to sing for you, what emotion does that trigger? Some of you, it's excitement. You're like, yeah, okay, sing. And some of you, you're nervous for me. You're like, oh my goodness, I wouldn't sing if I was her. Doesn't she know not everyone's going to like her music? So the reason why I do it, especially in schools, is because not only is it a love of mine, it's one of the ways I communicate, but it is a prime example of vulnerability that triggers judgment and emotions in other people. And I promised myself when I became a speaker, I wasn't just going to say a whole bunch of stuff. I was going to practice and practice in front of you, because sometimes I am nervous. My heart's racing. Excuse me, my throat's closing in, but I'm still choosing to make a choice that shows who I believe I am as a person, which is I'm choosing courage. I'm leaning into the emotion, the discomfort of it, but I'm choosing, my choice is courage. I'm choosing to respect myself, the people who will enjoy it, and my dreams of making a difference for those that are open. Now, corporately, yes, sometimes they Google me and they say, hey, I also know you're a singer. So can you sing a song? And again, I get to use it as a prime example of, oh my goodness, are you nervous that the speaker's going to start singing? You're like, oh my gosh, is this Canadian Idol? And it's great because it also invokes laughter, because everyone is thinking, oh, I am a little bit uncomfortable or nervous, or I'm excited. And so it's good like that. So I can use it when I need to. And sometimes I don't use it at all, but I have it.
So I think one of the fears that many people have is of having to sing, especially in front of their peers and their colleagues. And so, I try to make the distinction between a head choice and a heart choice by doing the following, and I've talked about, do you want to play to win or play to not lose? Right. And so people say, yeah, I want to play to win, and what that looks like. So I say, okay, I want you to write down on a piece of paper one of your favorite songs, and then turn it over so no one else can see it. So everyone writes down the name of their favorite song, and they turn it over. And I say, okay, what I'm going to do is give you about 10 seconds to prepare. And in 10 seconds, I'm going to come around and pick one person at random from each table. Well, probably not at random, probably the person who looks the least comfortable, and ask him or her to stand up and sing the first 10 or 15 seconds of that song at the top of their lungs.
Oh, no.
Now, I don't actually, yeah, exactly. That's the response. I don't actually do that. I just give them about 10 seconds just to think about it. And then I get them to talk about with folks at the table. So what went through your mind, when you heard about that? You just said that you agreed to play to win. And if there's a little critter sitting on your shoulder and there was the opportunity to sing, did you take a play to win response or a play to not lose response? And for the vast majority of people, it's a play to not lose response, because things will go through their mind like, well, first of all, they'll look comfortable. So someone else at the table gets picked instead of them. They'll get up and go to the washroom. They'll start going through, well, there's no sound pedagogical reason for putting me in an uncomfortable situation, yada, yada, yada. And the only point I want to make, and there's a couple of other things that go through the mind that this is a public or a family show, so I won't repeat it. But there's a big difference between what they say they're going to do and the emotion that comes up when the thought of actually doing it. And the only reason for doing that is the intention is not to make them uncomfortable. The intention is to make them realize there's a difference between the head and the heart. And when they're talking about playing to win and playing to not lose, singing is a great way for people to get a gut sense of that rather than just a head sense of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then what, have you ever had someone who's playing to win?
I would have to say never. Never. I've never had someone say, oh, I hope he picks me. Please, I'd like to do it. And even people that sing in a musical group and, their church choir, things like that, the thought of doing it in a group where they might be judged and there might be consequences for that judgment totally take away their ability to sing. They go hoarse and things like that. And I literally have done this with thousands of people, and no one has ever said, oh, I hope he picks me. A lot of them say, oh, I hope he picks her, or I hope he picks him. But the thought of doing something that they've never done before where they might be judged is huge.
Yeah, no, that does bring up so then I would look at, okay, the circumstances, you're being asked to do something, like saying it's outside your comfort. What emotion does that trigger? Okay, so it triggers nervous and anxious. Let's just pretend that's, so then I'd say, okay, so notice it, what's happening like physically in your body. Is your heart racing? Is your throat closing in? Because if you can now say to your brain, I am feeling anxious, now it takes the information to the executive functioning part of your brain. So now your brain's noticing, which gives you more power because you've labeled it. Hi, anxious. Okay, now my heart's racing. Okay, my throat's closing in. And now that I know I'm feeling an emotion, I can either choose to react out of the emotion or I can choose to do something with it. So then what the next part that I talk about in my work is managing the emotion, navigating the emotion, leaning into it. I think we spend a lot of our time just trying to feel comfortable all the time. Well, what if the human experience isn't just about comfort? It's you, how do you grow in comfort? You don't. You grow in discomfort when you lean in and you're like, ugh. And that's when you actually make steps in your confidence. And and sometimes you mess up, but that's how you learn. So I think then I would look at, okay, so if out of anxious, if I make a choice, my choice is to do all those things you just said. But if my choice is, I'm anxious. Yes, my heart is racing. I'm allowed to feel anxious. That's just my body saying, hi, Sarah, stay alert. Something is happening. Something is going on. And now I can make a choice that still shows my character of, you know what? I'm going to be courageous, or I'm going to be really creative. I'm going to let my creativity shine in this moment. But if I'm stuck in anxious and I make a choice, the creativity, the courage goes away. So my whole thing is, how do we teach people to recognize emotions so that you can practice what you do with them so you can still show up of character? And the times when you mess up and you totally make a choice out of emotion and later you're like, oh, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I didn't do that. Then you have a place to say, okay, life's not about perfection, but it is about reflection and redirection. I have tools so I can reflect and I can do something different next time.
It's quite amazing how many people who say, if picked, they were going to sing Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? So no one saw what was on their card, right? Yeah. Mary Had a Little Lamb, or Oh Canada, or something like that. Sarah, I could chat with you for maybe 3 or 4 days, I'm figuring here.
Okay. So one will be a long podcast, listeners. Just really strap down.
But this has been absolutely fabulous. And I think, you've really given people something to think about. And, any resources that you have, we can put in the program notes if people want to find that. I want to find a way to bring you out to work with some of my clients. I'm quite excited about that as a possibility now. But,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a virtual option. Like, we could do it virtual if we had to.
Oh, we could. Yes, we could. We could do that. Yes.
I can work with that.
I can, exactly. I was just about to say that.
Yeah, no, and I love talking to you. You're always empowering and calm, and you always have wisdom. Always. Every time I talk to you. So thank you. And if I could just say one piece before we end, and I do believe this is what keeps the foundation together, especially when it comes to confidence, resilience, and worth, is remembering how enough you are. Mm-hmm. And I do believe there's power in those words, I am enough. I am enough. Because when you believe you're enough, it gives you a voice. Because when you don't believe you're enough, you're like, oh, am I enough to even say my opinion? Am I enough to even be here? Am I even enough to belong? Enough already. You are enough. You are born worthy. And when you believe you're enough, you have a voice that gives you a choice to positively impact not just your life, but other people's. And some people question, like, oh, if I believe I'm enough, does it make me complacent? No, it's the opposite. It gives you room for growth. Not believing you're enough keeps you complacent and down because it's like, well, what does it matter? But your enoughness is the foundation to springboard from. And that is key.
And I think it pulls you out of the need to compare yourself to anyone else and that competitive framework, right? It's I am enough. Doesn't matter about those others. And that's tough, but boy, what a life lesson that is to learn.
And I wrote a song called Love Crusade, and it was about judging, comparing, changing. And the whole thing is about you are enough. Instead of judging and comparing yourself, don't be at war with yourself. Own your uniqueness.
So nice move there, Sara. So now there's going to be a bunch of people want to know, does she have a CD? Can I get it?
Yeah. I just start doing sound bites. 4 a.m. lay on my... Yeah, no. And I'm on Spotify. So there you go.
Hey, perfect. Sara, thank you so much.
I should have warmed up. Gosh, now, David, I wasn't warmed up.
Sara, you are enough.
I'm judging.
You are enough. Yes, exactly.
See? See?
It's all about catching ourselves, right? And making a different choice.
I love it. Right? Absolutely.
Thank you for your time.
And what was yours? Yours was, I can handle that.
I can handle that. Yeah. I can work with that because that's different.
I can work with that. Yeah, that's right. No, because you're working passive, with it.
I can handle it. I can work with that. Or I can work with this if you're in the midst of it.
I can work with this. I can work with this. I love that. Thank you.
I've got a little clip on my podcast that I just did myself, just describing that very thing. And you're welcome to use it and abuse it and improve it. So,
perfect.
So, Sara, thank you so much. As I said, this has been a pleasure. I can't say that too many times. I can't possibly oversay that or overdo that. But this has been David Guthrow with Sara Wesbrook on Discover Fresh Perspectives.
Thank you for having me.
Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.